Hello, in this video, we're going to be going over libraries in Python. In the last video, we went over dictionary, which is a data structure that allows us to store and organize data in an effective way. And we also learned that a dictionary is a collection of key value pairs, and we can assign those key value pairs as well. We also learned how to index into a dictionary and add a certain key value pair if we forgot to add it when we declared a dictionary variable. So now we're going to be covering over libraries in Python. A library is basically a collection of related modules, and so basically these modules are Python files that contain statements and definitions as well as functions that allow the user to use these functions throughout our program. And so basically it makes it much easier for the programmer since these modules consist of inbuilt functions, and the user can use these inbuilt functions to solve whatever they need to when they're making their programs. And so before I start going on to importing libraries, I'm going to be first making a program in which I prompt the user to type in an integer. And after they typed in that integer, I'm just going to be printing out the square root of the integer. So first of all, I'm going to declare a variable, which we've been doing in the last video. So we have number, set that equal to int, and then open and close parentheses, so that this indicates that the user must type in an integer. And then we have input, and we have this open and close parentheses as well, and these quotation marks. And inside these quotation marks, I have this number. And so in these quotation marks is whatever is going to be outputted to our terminal. Input means that it's going to indicate that the user must type in something in order for this program to work. And we have this int, so that the user types in an integer. So after I've declared that variable, now I'm just going to be printing out the square root of that variable. So I have print open and close parentheses, and then I have the variable inside these parentheses. And how you take the square root of a number is that there's something called an exponentiation factor in Python. And so basically what it's exponentiation operator. And so how an exponentiation operator works is that you can take a quantity to the power of an exponent. So the way that exponentiation operator works is that we have two asterisks. And what comes before this asterisk is the base, and what comes after this two asterisks is the exponent of the base. So we have number to the power of a certain number. So I'm going to be demonstrating how to square a number. So a number times number, which means number to the power of 2. So the way that we do number to the power of 2 is that we have this number, and basically this means to the power of, so number to the power of 2. And exponentiation operator works with two asterisks. So if I run this, and if I type 5, it's going to be printing out the square of 5. So 5 times 5, which is 25. If I type out 7, it's going to print out the square of this number, which is 49. And so in order to take the square root of a number, we can do number to the power of 1/2. And so number to the power of 1/2 is the same thing as taking a square root of a number. So we have number to the power of 1/2. And we have this 1/2 here. So if I try to run this, and if I type out 5, it's gonna print out something that's weird. The square root of 5, we do not know this, but we know that 2.5 is half of 5. So let's try to print out another number, like, for example, we'll do 9, since that's the perfect square root. And it's gonna be printing out 4.5. Now the square root of 9 is 3, not 4.5. And when we're trying to do the square root of a number in this case, we need to make sure that we use parentheses, because order of operations also count when in these Python programs. Now if we didn't have these parentheses, recall how order of operations work is that it's gonna basically do this number to the power of 1 and divide this result by 2, and we don't want that. We need to do number to the power of 1/2, and 1/2 being the exponent. So we need to be careful about order of operations when we make these programs. So we have number to the power of 1/2 in parentheses. And if we did remove these parentheses, what it's basically doing is number to the power of 1, which is the number itself, divided by 2. And we see that this 4.5 is basically half of 9. And so that's basically what's going to happen if you don't have these parentheses around this 1/2. Which means number to the power of, in parentheses, this whole exponent is 1/2, which also means square root of this number. So now if I try to run this and try to type out 9, now it's going to print out the result of the square root of 9, which is 3.0. And to test out more cases, if I try to print out or type out 49, it's gonna print out the square root of this number. So so now that it works, now we have another way of doing the square root of a number, and that is basically through libraries or modules. So the way that we import a module in this case, and so this module is basically going to give us a function that we can use rather than needing to use this exponentiation factor. And so what this module is called is import math. So the way that this works is that import, which means that there's a Python file or module called math, and I want to add that math module into my program so that it gives me access to more functions of this module of math. So now if I import math, it's going to give me access to the functions of math. And there's a square root function as part of math. So instead of having this exponentiation operator with 2 asterisks, I could just get rid of this to the power of 1/2. And then what I need to do is that I need to get rid of this number as well. And so basically how we use these functions as part of the importing modules, first we need to type out the name of the module. When you're printing out the square root of a number, first you need to type out the name of the module, and we need to do dot, and then the name of that function. Now this may be similar to the last videos in which we had this dot in order to gain access to this method of whatever was in the last few videos. So this is a similar idea we're adding here. So sqrt is basically square root, and that's an inbuilt function that's part of math. And so that's how it makes modules more useful. As we get into building more programs, we can import certain libraries or modules that give us more access to certain functions that we can use throughout our programs. And it basically makes it more convenient for the user. So now that I have this math.sqrt, which means this math module, and I'm gaining access to this function of sqrt, which is square root. Now I need, after this sqrt, I'm just gonna have open and close parentheses, and inside these open and close parentheses, I'm gonna have to type out the variable of what I want to take the square root of. So in this case, whatever the user types, I want to take the square root of that. And since whatever the user types is going to be stored in this variable, I just need to do number here, so that this sqrt is taking the square root of that number. And so now if I run this out, and if I type out 9, that's going to print out the same thing as we did last time, except we didn't use a module last time. So it's going to print out the square root of this 9, which is 3.0. And now if I try to print out or type out 16, for example, it's going to print out the square root of the 16. Now, if you want to see a list of all the modules that you can use on Python, you can see the Python documentation, which has a whole list of Python standard libraries, and it also has a list of modules that we can import in our Python programs to make whatever we want to make in our program much easier, as we have more features that we can use as part of those modules. Now, another way that we can do this is that we're still using the library or module, but another way that instead of just having import, we can also have something called from import. So the way that this works is that we have this from and then this import. Now after this from, I need to give in the name of the module. So from this module, I can import a certain function. So this is the way that the format works. If I want to import a certain function, now you can use this if you have if you're only using like 1 or 2 functions throughout our program. But if you're having a whole list of functions that we need to use, then we can simply just use import. And basically what import is doing here, if you only have import, it's just going to import this whole module of math. But when you're using from import, we can import a certain function that we want to use. So in this case, since I'm using only sqrt, I just need to give the name of the module after this from. So since this is expecting the module name, all I need to do is math. From math, import the name of the function I'm using. Since I'm using square root as the only function as part of this module, I can simply just use this. Now I can do from math import sqrt, and the only change that's going to happen is that this is going to be a red line. Now if you're doing from import, there's no need to add this module dot. Now we don't need to add this module dot. In this case, we don't need to have this math dot when we have this from math import. And so it's basically just having print sqrt of this number. Since I have this from math import this certain function. And so that's another way that we can do this, but it's a way of achieving the same thing. So now if I run this, uh, if I try to type out 9, it's going to have the same result. So if I print out 9, then it's going to give the square root of 9, which is 3. And if I try to type out 16, it's going to give the square root of 16, which is 4. And so to summarize, we can import a whole module. Generally, we only use import this module when you have a lot of functions that we're using in our program. And if you add this from import, this means that we're not really using a lot of functions. In this case, I'm only using sqrt, so I can just simply use from this module import the certain function, and it basically, I don't need, when I'm using it in the program, I don't need to specify the module and then dot. I can just simply go on to using the function. But if I had this import math, then I would need to do math.sqrt when I'm doing this in the program. So that basically highlights the differences between the import and from import. And so basically that's what we cover in libraries in this video. So in the next video, we're going to be looking at Python and how it works as a programming language in general.